Nobody talks about the debt. They talk about dreams and goals and becoming your best self and living your potential. They talk about it like it is optional, like it is something you can choose to pursue or choose to leave alone, and either way you come out even. But you do not come out even. Every year you spend living below what you are capable of is a year of interest added to a debt that does not stop growing just because you stop thinking about it. The potential does not expire quietly. It accumulates. It waits. And somewhere underneath everything you have built to avoid thinking about it, it is still there, still owed, still waiting to be honored. This audiobook is about that debt and about what it costs to finally pay it. Hash the debt you owe yourself. How to stop betraying the person you were supposed to become. Hash introduction, the unpaid bill. There is a type of bankruptcy that does not show up on any financial statement. It does not appear in credit scores or court documents or the visible ledgers that track what you owe and to whom. It leaves no paper trail. No collection agency comes for it. No external consequence arrives on any predictable schedule to force a reckoning. But it is real, and it accumulates with the same mathematical certainty as any other debt. It is the debt you owe yourself. Every time you knew what you were capable of and chose less. Every time the hard thing was available and the easy thing won. Every time you made a promise to yourself with genuine intention and then broke it quietly when nobody was watching. Every time the real version of your life was within reach and the comfortable version was chosen instead. Each of these moments added to the balance, small amounts individually, compounding significantly over time. And the person who was supposed to benefit from a life lived at full capacity has been waiting, not patiently exactly, but persistently, in the way that real things wait, without drama, without ultimatum, but without going away. This audiobook is a reckoning, not a punishment, not a guilt trip designed to make you feel terrible about the years that have passed the way they have passed. A genuine and honest reckoning with what is owed and what it will take to pay it, and what becomes available on the other side of finally honoring the obligation that has been outstanding for too long. The debt is real, the payment is possible, and the life that becomes available when you commit to paying it is worth every difficult thing the payment requires. Let us begin the accounting. Chapter 1, How the Debt Accumulates. The debt does not begin with a dramatic betrayal. It begins with something so small it barely registers, a moment of hesitation that becomes a retreat, a standard that gets lowered just this once, a promise to yourself that gets broken with a justification so reasonable that it barely feels like a breaking. And then it happens again, and again, and each time the justification is slightly more practiced. The bar for what counts as a reasonable excuse is slightly lower. The distance between who you said you would be and who you are actually being is slightly wider. And the part of you that is tracking all of this, that is keeping the honest ledger, grows slightly quieter in its protest. Not because it has accepted the situation, because it has learned that the protest is not being heard. The debt accumulates in specific categories. The first category is broken commitments to yourself. These are the promises that never involved anyone else, the private decisions made in moments of genuine clarity about what needed to change and how the change would happen, the morning you were going to start, the conversation you were going to have, the work you were going to begin, the behavior you were going to stop. Every one of these private commitments that was made and not kept added to the ledger, not as a moral failure, as a withdrawal from the account of self-trust that the capable version of your life requires to operate. The second category is suppressed potential. These are the capabilities and gifts and possibilities that you have been aware of, sometimes acutely aware of, that have not been developed or expressed or offered because developing and expressing and offering them felt too vulnerable or too risky or too far outside the contracted version of yourself that you have been maintaining, the talent that has been kept private, the idea that has been kept internal, the direction that has been considered and reconsidered and never actually taken, the version of your contribution to the world that has been withheld. Every year that potential sits unexpressed is another year of debt, another year of interest on something that was always meant to be given and has instead been kept in a drawer. The third category is relationships with yourself. The quality of the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of everything else, and many people have been in a quietly abusive relationship with themselves for years, harsh in the private assessment, inconsistent in the keeping of agreements, dismissive of their own needs and dismissive of their own potential in equal measure. This too is debt, owed to the self that deserved better treatment than it received, that deserved to be taken seriously, to be spoken to with the same basic respect you would extend to someone you genuinely cared about. The debt in all three categories is real, and the first step to paying it is seeing it clearly. Chapter 2: The betrayal you do not talk about. There is a word for breaking faith with someone who trusted you completely. Betrayal. And most people never apply it to themselves. They apply it to the moments when other people broke faith with them, when trust was given and not honored, when expectation was created and not met, when the implicit promise of a relationship was violated. But the deepest and most consequential betrayal that most people have experienced was not done to them by someone else. It was done by them to themselves. The self that trusted you to develop the potential it came with. The self that believed, based on the genuine intentions you expressed, that the hard work was coming, that the real version of your life was being built, that the capabilities being discovered would be honored with the effort required to develop them fully. That self trusted you, and at some point, in the accumulation of small compromises and reasonable justifications and one more day postponements, you broke faith with it. This is not said to generate shame. Shame is not useful here, and it is not the purpose of numbing this clearly. The purpose is honesty, because the relationship between you and yourself cannot be repaired without first acknowledging what happened to damage it, without numbing the betrayal accurately so that the repair can be equally accurate. You broke faith with yourself, not because you are a bad person, because the path of genuine commitment to your own potential is difficult in ways that are easy to underestimate from the outside and deeply challenging to sustain from the inside. Because life is complicated and demanding, and the easier path is always immediately available. Because the self you were betraying was patient and quiet in its protest, and the world was loud and insistent in its demands. You broke faith, and the broken faith created distance between who you are and who you were supposed to become, between your daily life and your actual potential, between the self you present to the world and the self that knows the full truth of what is owed. Numbing this clearly is the beginning of the repair, because you cannot close a distance you have not acknowledged, you cannot repair a breach you have not identified, and you cannot pay a debt you have not looked at honestly. The betrayal happened. It is time to make it right. Chapter 3: What you actually owe. The debt is not vague. It is not a general obligation to be better or try harder or live more fully. Those formulations are too imprecise to generate real payment. You cannot pay a debt you cannot specify. What do you actually owe yourself? The first thing is development. Whatever capabilities you arrived with, whatever the specific combination of intelligence and creativity and emotional depth and practical skill that is uniquely yours, you owe those capabilities the effort of full development, not partial development, not the development that was convenient and comfortable and did not require too much sacrifice. Full development, the kind that takes what was given to you and builds it into everything it was capable of becoming. Most people have developed their capabilities to about 30 or 40% of their actual potential. The rest has been left on the table, not because the capability was not there, because the commitment to developing it fully was not sustained. You owe your capabilities their full development, not for ego, not for external recognition, because the capabilities were given to you specifically. They are yours to steward, and a steward who leaves the entrusted thing undeveloped has not done their job. The second thing you owe yourself is honesty. Specifically, the honesty of living in alignment with what you actually believe and value rather than what is convenient or approved of or least likely to generate friction. So many people are living lives that are architecturally built around other people's preferences, around what their family expected, around what their culture rewards, around what was most available at a particular moment in their history, and became the default through inertia rather than genuine choice. You owe yourself the honesty of examining your life and determining which parts of it are genuinely yours and which parts are inherited performances that have never been questioned, and then the courage of restructuring in the direction of the genuine. The third thing you owe yourself is presence. Not mindfulness in the fashionable sense, genuine presence, the quality of actually inhabiting your own life rather than moving through it on autopilot, of making choices consciously rather than by default, of being genuinely awake to what is happening in your own experience rather than managing and performing and getting through without fully arriving. The present moment of your life is the only place where any of the payment can actually happen, and yet most people spend most of their present moments somewhere else. In the past, that is already fixed, or the future that has not yet arrived, missing the only territory where the debt can be honored. You owe yourself your own presence, in the life you are actually living, in the moments that are actually here. This is where the payment happens. This is where the self that has been waiting finally gets what it is owed. Chapter 4: The Interest Rate of Avoidance. Here is something that makes the debt more urgent than most people realize. The interest rate on avoided potential is extraordinarily high. Every year you spend living below your capacity does not simply add 1 year of debt to the balance. It adds a year of compounding loss. The loss of what that year could have built. The loss of the momentum that year would have created for the next one. The loss of the confidence that comes from operating at your real level. The loss of the relationships and opportunities and possibilities that only become available to the version of you that is fully expressed rather than partially withheld. These losses compound, in the same way that financial interest compounds, except that financial interest can be calculated precisely and this cannot, which makes it easy to underestimate. The person who spends 10 years living at 60% of their capacity has not simply lost 10 years of the full version. They have lost the compound interest on 10 years of full version living, the relationships that would have been built, the capabilities that would have been developed, the opportunities that would have been unlocked by earlier opportunities. The version of themselves that would have existed at the end of 10 full years, that is simply not the same version that exists at the end of 10 partial ones. This is not meant to generate despair about the years that have already passed this way. What is past, and it cannot be changed, and spending energy on regret about it is itself a form of avoidance. Another way of not being present to what can actually be done now. It is meant to generate urgency about what happens next. Because the interest rate works in both directions. Every year you spend living at your full capacity also compounds. Every year of genuine development builds the foundation for deeper development in the next year. Every year of honest living creates the conditions for more honest living in the year that follows. Every year of paying the debt reduces the balance and builds the kind of internal wealth that grows faster the more of it you have. The interest rate of avoidance is high, and so is the interest rate of genuine engagement. The question is which one you want compounding from this point forward. Chapter 5: The Excuses That Sound Like Truth. The debt has survived as long as it has because of a specific kind of protection. The protection of excuses that sound like truth. Not obvious excuses, not the transparent rationalizations that you can see through the moment you examine them honestly. The sophisticated kind. The ones that have the vocabulary of wisdom and practicality and self-awareness. The ones that would convince most people who heard them. The ones that have convinced you. Here are the most common ones, and what they are actually saying underneath the reasonable surface. The excuse that says, "I am not ready yet." On the surface, this sounds like self-awareness, like the honest acknowledgement of a genuine deficit that needs to be addressed before the real work can begin. But underneath, in most cases, it is saying something different. It is saying that the vulnerability of beginning without certainty of success is more than I am currently willing to tolerate. The "not ready" is not a description of actual preparation levels. It is a description of fear levels. The truth is that readiness is not a state you reach before you begin. It is a state you build through beginning. The doing is what creates the readiness. And waiting to feel ready before you start is waiting for a condition that the waiting itself prevents from arriving. The excuse that says, "I do not have enough time." This one has more texture because time is genuinely finite and genuinely unequally distributed, and genuinely more scarce for some people than others. But for most people who use this excuse, the honest examination reveals something different from what the excuse claims. It reveals priorities, not time scarcity. The time that is claimed to be unavailable for the real work is going somewhere. It is going to things that feel more urgent or more comfortable or more immediately rewarding than the difficult sustained effort the real work requires, which is a legitimate choice. But it is a choice, not a constraint, and naming it accurately as a choice rather than a constraint is necessary for the reckoning to be honest. The excuse that says it is too late. This one is the most sophisticated because it contains a grain of real truth. Time is genuinely finite. Windows do genuinely close on specific expressions of specific possibilities, and acknowledging this is not the same as using it as a reason to stop. The too late excuse almost always proves, under honest examination, to be too late for the specific form of the thing rather than too late for the thing itself. Too late to become a professional athlete at 40 is real. Too late to develop physical discipline and compete and build something meaningful through sport is not. Too late to have started the business 10 years ago is real. Too late to build something significant in the years that remain is almost never true for anyone still breathing and capable of reading. The excuses that sound like truth are the debt's best protection. Remove the protection, see them for what they are, and then make the actual choice about what to do in their absence. Chapter 6, the payment plan. The debt cannot be paid all at once. This is important to understand so that you do not attempt the dramatic total payment that feels like a genuine reckoning, but is actually another form of avoidance. The grand gesture that substitutes for the sustained practice. The dramatic declaration that replaces the quiet daily work. The debt is paid in installments, in the small daily choices that over time add up to a life lived at a fundamentally different level than the one that accumulated the debt in the first place. Here is what a genuine payment plan looks like. The first installment is the commitment to stop adding to the debt. Before you can make progress on what is already owed, you have to stop the bleeding. You have to stop the daily accumulation of new broken commitments and new suppressed potential and new moments of living below what you are capable of. This does not require perfection. It requires a genuine and honest effort to make more choices today that belong to the person you owe this debt to. More moments of choosing the real version over the comfortable version. More instances of keeping the promise rather than breaking it. More days where the ledger moves in the right direction. The bleeding stops before the healing can begin. The second installment is the development of one capability that has been neglected. Not all of them at once. One, the one that has been waiting longest, the one that you are most aware of having neglected, the one that, if you are honest, you know represents the core of the debt more than anything else. Choose it, commit to it, give it a specific and non-negotiable portion of your daily time and energy, not when you have extra, as a baseline, as a fixed cost that the rest of the day gets organized around rather than a discretionary expenditure that gets cut when other things demand attention. This single sustained commitment will do more to repair the relationship with yourself than any grand gesture or dramatic declaration, because it is real, it is daily, and it produces the evidence that the old pattern is changing. The third installment is the honoring of one truth about yourself that you have been withholding. One thing you know to be true about who you are and what you need, and what you actually want that has been suppressed in the service of someone else's comfort, or your own fear of what would change if you acknowledged it openly. Bring it into the light, not necessarily to everyone, but to yourself fully and honestly, and then begin organizing your choices around its truth rather than around the fiction that has been substituted for it. These three installments, stopping the accumulation, developing the neglected capability, honoring the suppressed truth, are the beginning of the payment plan. They are not the complete payment, but they are the beginning, and the beginning is everything. Chapter 7, Rebuilding Trust with Yourself. The debt is financial in metaphor, but the damage is relational in reality. What has been most damaged by the accumulation of the debt is not your circumstances or your capabilities or your external life. It is your relationship with yourself. The trust between the part of you that makes promises and the part of you that has to live with whether they are kept. That trust has been eroded by the broken commitments and the suppressed potential and the years of living below what was possible. And eroded trust does not repair through intention. It repairs through consistent behavior over time. Here is how you rebuild trust with yourself. You make very small promises, and you keep them absolutely. Not ambitious promises, small ones. Promises so modest that keeping them requires only a fraction of the discipline that breaking them would require. The promise to drink water before coffee. The promise to spend 10 minutes on the neglected capability before opening any distraction. The promise to write down one honest thought before the day fills with other people's agendas. Small promises kept absolutely are the building material of rebuilt trust. Each kept promise is a deposit, a signal from the promise-making part of yourself to the promise-living part that things are changing, that the pattern is different now, that the commitments being made can be believed. As the trust rebuilds through small kept promises, the promises can grow. Not faster than the trust supports, but in proportion to it. As the evidence accumulates that you are now someone who keeps their word to themselves, the word can become larger and the commitment it represents can become more significant. This is the patient work of relational repair. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be shortcut by a dramatic gesture that substitutes for the sustained practice. It requires time and consistency, and the specific quality of showing up that proves, through repetition rather than declaration, that the relationship is being taken seriously. The relationship with yourself is the most important relationship in your life. It deserves the same care and intentionality and sustained effort that you would bring to repairing any relationship that mattered deeply. It matters more than any other relationship because everything else is built on it. Chapter 8. What the person you were supposed to become actually needs. Let us be specific about who is waiting for the payment. The person you were supposed to become is not some idealized fantasy, not a perfect being without limitations or struggles or bad days. They are a version of you that is simply more honest, more developed, more willing to live in the tension of genuine challenge rather than retreating to the safety of managed mediocrity. What does that person actually need from you? They need your effort. Not all of it in a single burst of intensity that burns out in weeks. The sustained, consistent, daily effort that is unglamorous and unrewarded in the short term and absolutely decisive in the long term. They need effort that shows up on the uninspired days as well as the motivated ones. On the days when nothing about the work feels meaningful and the progress is invisible, and the distance to the destination seems to have grown rather than shrunk. The effort on those days is the most important effort of all, because it is on those days that the choice is most clearly between the debt-adding version and the debt-paying version. They need your honesty, the specific honesty of no longer pretending that the life you are living is the one you actually want when you know it is not, of no longer performing contentment with arrangements that are diminishing you, of no longer participating in the collective fiction that everything is fine when the internal ledger is telling a different story. They need your presence, your actual inhabiting of your own life, your genuine engagement with what is actually happening in your experience rather than the managed distance that has been a form of self-protection. And they need your commitment, not the commitment that is enthusiastic at the beginning and erodes under pressure. The commitment that is a decision made once and returned to daily regardless of how it feels in any given moment. The commitment that treats the payment of the debt as a non-negotiable obligation rather than a discretionary aspiration. Give these things to the version of yourself that has been waiting for them. They are not difficult to understand. They are only difficult to sustain. Sustain them. Chapter 9. The creditor who forgives. Here is the most important thing about this particular debt. The creditor wants to forgive it. The person you were supposed to become is not waiting with resentment and a list of grievances and a demand for perfect repayment of every missed installment. They are not keeping a punishing account of every moment you fell short and every year you spent below your capacity and every promise you made and broke. They are waiting with something that looks almost like patience, like the specific quality of waiting that belongs to something that knows it is going to arrive eventually, that knows the nature of its own inevitability, that is simply waiting for the conditions that allow it to emerge. Because the person you were supposed to become was never actually lost, it was never destroyed by the years of deferred payment, it was never damaged beyond the possibility of emergence by the broken commitments or the suppressed potential or the living below capacity. It was waiting, in the way that seeds wait, in the way that light waits on the other side of a closed door, present, ready, requiring only the right conditions to become visible. The right conditions are the ones you create through the payment, through the daily installments of kept promises and honored potential and honest living that gradually create the internal environment in which the version that was always meant to emerge can finally do so. And when you return to the payment, when you take the first genuine steps toward honoring what is owed, the creditor does not demand a full accounting of everything missed, does not require you to feel sufficiently terrible about the past before allowing the future to begin. The creditor simply says, "You are here, the payment is beginning, that is enough, let us proceed." That is the grace available in this particular debt. The creditor is merciful, the forgiveness is real, and the only thing required to receive it is the genuine commitment to begin the payment now and sustain it forward. Chapter 10. The life on the other side of payment. What does the life look like when the debt is being genuinely paid? Not fully paid. The payment plan runs for the rest of your life, but genuinely in progress, consistently moving in the direction of honoring what is owed rather than adding to the balance. It looks like waking up with a different quality of relationship with yourself. Not perfect, not without struggle, but honest. The quality of relationship that comes from being someone who is keeping their word to themselves, who is doing the real work, who is living in increasingly honest alignment with what they actually are rather than what is most comfortable to perform. It looks like a different relationship with time, the urgency that comes from understanding that the debt does not wait indefinitely, that the interest rate of avoidance is real, that every day is either an installment payment or an addition to the balance. This urgency is not anxious. It is clarifying. It helps you make decisions about how to spend your hours that the previous relationship with time did not support. It looks like a different relationship with other people, because the person who is genuinely paying the debt to themselves has a different quality of presence in their relationships. They are less needy of external validation because the internal account is being funded. They are more genuinely available to others because they are no longer managing the guilt and avoidance of the unpaid debt. They are more honest because the commitment to honesty with themselves makes dishonesty with others feel increasingly incompatible. And it looks like a different relationship with your own potential. The one that was suppressed and neglected and treated as a luxury rather than an obligation begins to feel like what it actually is: a responsibility, a stewardship, something that was given to you specifically and is yours to develop fully and offer genuinely to a world that needs what only you are equipped to give in the way that only you are equipped to give it. That is the life on the other side of the payment. It is not a life without difficulty. It is a life in which the difficulty is in service of something real, in which the effort is directed toward the genuine thing rather than the managed performance of a comfortable but diminished existence. It is a life you can respect, that is worth whatever the payment costs. Conclusion: start paying. The accounting is done. You know what the debt is. You know how it accumulated. You know what the person you were supposed to become actually needs from you. You know what the payment plan looks like and what the life on the other side of genuine payment feels like. There is nothing left to understand before you begin. The payment starts now. Not with a dramatic gesture, not with a declaration to anyone, with a single small kept promise to yourself today that was not kept yesterday, with one choice that belongs to the person you owe this debt to rather than the person who has been spending years adding to the balance. One choice today, that is the first installment. And then another one tomorrow, and the day after, and every day following in the specific and unglamorous and absolutely essential daily practice of living up to what you owe. The creditor is waiting, not with anger, with the specific quality of anticipation that belongs to something that knows it is coming, that has always known it was coming, that was simply waiting for you to arrive at the moment of genuine commitment. You have arrived. The payment begins now. Honor the debt. Honor yourself.